Hello and welcome to the No Huddle Podcast, a midweek episode for the first time in a long time, and that's because it's a special occasion. We have the postseason. In just 2 days, we're going to be kicking off with the Panthers and the Rams. That is amazing. My goodness, what an amazing time for football. It's January, the best time to be a football fan. We have these NFL games going on, and then, of course, we have the college football semifinals and the Natty coming up in just a few weeks. So, cherish this time. I feel like this month will always goes by so fast with all the football, and pretty soon we're going to be craving for it. So with all of that being said, let's get started. I will have timestamps linked for all of the games I'm going through if you just want to just watch just about your team, or if you just want to see a game in particular, or maybe even a segment of that, then by all means, feel free to use the timestamps. That is what they are there for. And yeah, with all that being said, let's get started. We're just going to go in chronological order here with the games. So the game that will be kicking off Wildcard weekend, it is the Panthers and the Rams on Saturday afternoon. And let me tell you, in preparation for the podcast, we have about 15 pages of notes or something absurd like that. And I spent all of yesterday the last 2 days just pouring over film. I was in my John Gruden era. I was loving it, blasting music and just watching film. It was great. Anyways, so for the Panthers, Rams-Panthers kicking off Saturday afternoon. And in this game, it's just simple. It's all about the run game. We've talked about Carolina for quite a bit on the show. They have been a roller coaster, to say the least. But for the most part, Carolina has had success and have pulled off their incredible upsets. Remember, Carolina has beaten Green Bay in Green Bay. Remember, this is when they had Micah Parsons, and then they had Tucker Kraft for half of that game as well. They'd beaten the Rams, too. They handled the Rams. That was a big upset loss. That was a loss that ended up letting the Seahawks game be for control of the NFC. So this Panthers team, it's safe to say, is well equipped and very used to having to pull off an upset. And it'll be no different here. The Rams are 10-point favorites. And yeah, it's going to have to be the run game, and they're going to have to win the turnover battle. Kind of just like they did against the Rams the last time they played them. So Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle had amazing games against the Rams in week 13. And of course, Bryce Young, had himself a great day. Had a ton of clutch 4th down conversions. The whole Panthers team was really clicking in that one. And the main thing is that they forced 3 Stafford turnovers. So for the Panthers, it's a matter of how can we replicate that? Even though it's going to be, let's just say, quite difficult to get another 3 turnover game out of Stafford. That, alongside the Atlanta game, was the worst games of his season. So as much as that is unlikely, I think their defense can improve in other ways that they didn't necessarily play their best against when it came to the Rams, because I watched back that Rams-Panthers game on tape, and they allowed the Rams to run all over them. I want to say Corum had 9 yards a carry or something absurd like that. Kyren Williams had a day. And then Stafford was going for nearly 8 to 9 per pass attempt. So in the previous matchup, the reason why the Rams were able to move the ball, again, excluding the turnovers, because they put up 28 points with 3 turnovers. That means they pretty much moved the ball whenever they wanted to. And the way they did that is the Panthers have 2 truly special players on that interior defensive line. Derek Brown, who is the second best run stuffer in football. I'd only take Vita Vea over him in that respect. And they have A'Shawn Robinson, who has been one of the most underrated players consistently over the last half decade. He was a big part of that Rams Super Bowl run. If you go back to the 2021 NFC Championship against the 49ers, he, alongside Aaron Donald, were probably the 2 most impactful people in the entire game. They were the 2 big run stuffers, and the way the Rams handled them was they double-teamed Derek Brown on every single play he was in the game. On any run situation, every single time they doubled him without fail. I couldn't find one snap where Derek Brown was left single coverage. Maybe there was one. I don't want to make that a blanket statement and come off like an idiot. But they did that, and then they ran away from A'Shawn Robinson. So they would, for example, let's say Derek Brown's on the right side of the interior defensive line, and A'Shawn Robinson's on the left side. Then they would throw the double at Derek Brown and run to the right and run away from A'Shawn. Because A'Shawn's a great run stuffer, but he does not have a ton of speed. And for the most part, that worked really well. So you're going to need 2 things. One, you're going to need to make sure A'Shawn Robinson isn't out on those run plays. If you're Carolina, you need to let him be a factor, because if you look at the other games Carolina has played, like, for example, their games against Tampa, they fully shut down that Tampa run game. And that is in no small part due to Derek Brown and A'Shawn Robinson. So you need to make sure A'Shawn's a factor in this game. He has to get off that line quickly. He has to shed quickly. He has to get those runners down. Because if the Rams can run the ball, it is going to be a long, long day in Carolina. And Derek Brown, at some point, you're a special player. Borderline, like, he is amazing to watch. And you're just going to need him to start winning double teams because the Rams will not leave him single covered anytime because he is that damn good. So for the Rams, for the Panthers, Derek Brown has to have an impact on this game. It can't just be, oh, well, he's doubled. No, he has to find a way to wreck the game. Like I said here, the Panthers got to get creative in some ways. Maybe you on passing downs, you stunt Derek Brown, just anything to get them either affecting the play, affecting the quarterback, affecting the running back, anything. And Carolina is a pure momentum team. So I would look for them to get an early... The way Carolina wins this game, if you say, hey, Anj, how did the Panthers win this game? It would be because Carolina got an early turnover, forced the Rams into a passing game, and from there they got a Stafford turnover, or they were just able to trust their corners and shut them down. That's going to be the only way. So you're going to need an early takeaway here. You need to get something to get that advantage going. You're going to need them maybe to score on the first drive. Need something. As far as a positive for Carolina, they are getting Robert Hunt back, they paid him like a ton of money from the Dolphins either last year or 2 off seasons ago. And when he's healthy, he's great. And the Rams are down their starting right guard in Kevin Dotson. So again, coming back to Derek Brown and N'Shawn Robinson, they are going to have to feast on that interior offensive line if they want any chance. And because when healthy, the Rams have like sneakily one of the best offensive lines in football. Now that Philly has had, let's just say, its fair share of issues on the line, they have very sneakily become one of the best offensive lines in football. And, of course, their defensive line is, no shocker, amazing. So, speaking on that front, let's go to the offensive side of the ball for Carolina. And how do you move the ball against the Rams? So, we already know the last few weeks, the Rams defense has just, let's just say, not been great. Over the last 6 games, they are a bottom 5 defense in the NFL. That is not just me saying that. That's through EPA, analytics, or if you just want to straight up look at the points. Yeah, the Rams have been struggling brutally in this one or in that regard. And even against Arizona, Michael Wilson, they were in that game in the fourth quarter and they got a bullshit call, offensive holding call that would have negated an 80-yard play to Michael Wilson. That Rams defense has not been playing particularly great. And if you look back to when they were playing Carolina, they were a much better unit then. They were a lot more successful. At that point, they were like a top 5 defense in the league. And then pretty much right as that Carolina game hit, then they started to fall off. So we'll see what they can do in that respect. Because, yeah, the Rams, I make the same point with their defense. It feels like for the last 3 years. I've made it on this podcast 100 times. Those Rams corners are so gettable. The Rams do not value the corner position. They also really don't value the linebacker position outside of Nate Landman. And Landman, he's great in tackling. He's a great run stuffer. But he is not great in pass coverage. He's 100% gettable. But the thing is, you need Bryce Young to take advantage of that, which, let's just say, it really shifts on any given day. As long as he hopefully sees the Falcons logo instead of the Rams logo, that might help as well. They have mismatches at the receiver spot against those Rams corners. Jalen Coker and Teteroa McMillan on the outside against the Rams corners. That is just a size mismatch, no way around it. Of course, they are significantly better than the Rams corners, too, when it comes to just being a pure football player. So the line's going to have to find a way to buy Bryce Young time, and those guys will be open or have like 80-20 balls ready to go. That is the path for Carolina to move the ball against this team. Run the ball and make that pass rush have to wait a tick and then get ready and take deep shots down the field. That is going to be the only way that the Panthers can win this game. So yeah, there is a path. Anyone who says the Panthers have zero chance in this game is wrong. I just don't think they watch much professional football because I don't know how many games you really go into saying that team has zero chance. I think that -10 line's a bit egregious. But am I saying that's a likely chance? Of course not. On the Rams side of things, they're welcoming back Devontae Adams. As I just mentioned before, Kevin Dotson is out for this one. That is a big injury. Dotson's a great, great guard. I'm not sure if he'd be back for next round either. That seems to be kind of in flux. And on the Rams side of it, you just need to not beat themselves. You need to commit to the run, get Stafford going early, and they'll be all right for the most part. The Panthers have 2 game breakers on defense, and especially in a game like this where you are so obviously better as far as your offensive talent goes, so much better on your defensive talent goes, and you have a better coaching staff, you just need to make sure you don't let the game breakers really, wreck the game. And the Panthers have 2 game breakers on defense. You have Derek Brown and you have J.C. Horn. So double Derek Brown, hell, triple team Derek Brown. Force anybody on that rush to beat you besides Derek Brown as far as pass rush goes. And throw the ball not towards J.C. Horn. It should be like, I'm trying to struggle to think of like a non-Niners analogy, but when Richard Sherman was here, like, and he was really good, but the Niners sucked, he would just get like 1 or 2 targets a game. It should be like that. Just don't let the Panthers find a way to make this a game. Throw the ball away from his side. You have Puka and Devontae Adams. Just don't throw it towards J.C. Horn's side. Just ignore that side of the field, and you'll probably be okay. Especially because those Panthers linebackers are not great. I have it in my notes that it's just free money. Because those backers in coverage, McVay will be very, very ready for that. Yeah. On the defensive side for the Panthers, or for the Rams, very simple. Force Bryce Young to beat you. Collapse on the run. Don't let Tet run free one-on-one on a deep shot. Either pray to God that your pass rush gets there, or just double him, have safety help ready to go on that side, and they'll be okay. My prediction for this one, I have the Rams winning but not covering. I have the Rams winning probably 27-21. I think Stafford plays a clean game. I anticipate McVay to be ready for Derek Brown and Ashawn and try and wash them out like they did last game. I think if they hold them off, and I think they hold off a late surge at the end by Carolina, just because Carolina has been like that this whole year, this weirdly frisky team that you can, for some reason, never count out. So I think the Rams win it, but a little bit closer than they would have wanted. Take it 27-21 and have the Rams moving on to the divisional round. Moving on to what I imagine, if people are not here for the Niners-Eagles game, they are here for me to talk about this one. The Packers at the Bears, Saturday night in Chicago. And let's start with the Packers side of things. Their number one goal in this game has to be to convert in the red zone. If you go back to the last game they played, of course, that was one of the games of the year, a classic in Chicago. More than anything, the thing that cost them the game, even more than the special teams freaking blunder on that onside kick, more than Caleb Williams having 2 of the best throws of the year, they went 0 for 5 in the red zone. That was the thing that killed them. That should not have been a game. The Packers were dominating them throughout the course of it, and they were moving the ball at will, but they were stuck in the red zone every single time, which is weird because the Packers are a at least average red zone team. I want to say they're right around 15th in the league. And Chicago's defense is not particularly great as a whole and in the red zone. So I'm not too sure necessarily what happened there. I just think that call it the Pope, man. Blessed Chicago that day. Of course, Malik Willis came in for the injured Jordan Love last time they around, and he played a really solid game. But of course, Jordan Love will start in this one. And I know some people will say, like, oh, should you start Malik? I don't know, quarterback controversy. I just think that's people getting ahead of themselves. Jordan Love has been really good this year. I know he has a few, like, what the hell interceptions, but sometimes he just has 20 touchdowns to 7 picks. He's playing great. Of course, he has some of the best arm talent in the league. He can really put the ball anywhere on the field. He is still an awesome quarterback. I think that we just love to get caught up in like the backup quarterback and what if the grass is greener on the other side? Don't fall for that trap. I think Jordan Love is going to be more than capable in this game. But realistically for the whole game, it's going to come down to the run. At least on the Packers side of it, for running the ball. Emmanuel Wilson had a really solid game last go-around because, I don't know if you remember, Josh Jacobs fumbled the ball near the goal line last game, and they either soft-benched him or he got injured. I'm not too particularly sure which. And then Emmanuel Wilson came in, and he actually was really, really successful on the ground. Part of that was because he was playing a lot with Malik Willis, who adds an extra dimension to the run game, but that's besides the point. But the Packers did a really, really solid job against the Bears run game in the first go-around, not the one in Chicago, of course, but the one in Green Bay. And for the most part, they dominated the game until, of course, the fourth quarter, and the Bears, do Bears things, and they were one pass away from winning it because it's, it's the Bears. But yeah, no Devontae Wyatt is huge in this game. There's a reason why I'm mostly referencing the second game here. It's because those are two different teams. The Packers team we saw in the first game and the Packers team we saw in Chicago. No Devontae Wyatt, no Micah Parsons. This is just a different team for the most part. They also need to force the Bears into 3rd and longs. That is going to be huge in this game. I watched the Brett Coleman preview in anticipation for this show as well because I also just love to learn. The Packers in 3rd and 7 or longer are one of the best teams in the league when it comes to holding the other team because they play a lot of zone coverage, and Jeff Hadley is a freaking wizard. I love Jeff Hadley so much. Or Jeff Hafley, I want to say. I'm not too sure which one or how to pronounce it. But what he does with the zone coverages and disguising them, it is so fun to watch. And, of course, in that respect, they're able to play back in the zone coverages. They force turnovers that way. And for the most part, they don't let the other team convert. But when you get to third and medium, like 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 3, then they start to play a lot of man coverage. And shocker, the Packers secondary is not very good. Outside of Xavier McKinney, like Keyshawn Nixon is their corner one. And that's just not necessarily something that's going to fly. So you need to make sure that you don't let the Bears go into 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. And that will double onto the Bears point that we're going to talk about soon. The Bears need to make sure they run the ball every time. Even if the Packers start stuffing it early, you have to stick to the run in this one. As far as the Bears defense goes, it's not particularly great. They really do struggle. They're a big bend defense. They will always go for the turnover. They will let up yards just to try and get the turnover. Some of the Cowboys units a few years ago and stuff like that. They are 100% focused on just the takeaways because they know that, frankly, they're not a particularly great defense. They're going to win the game off of getting a few plays like that. And like I mentioned, kind of like the Rams, if the Packers just throw the ball away from Jalen Johnson, force one of the other 10 guys on that defense to beat you, they're going to be in a good spot. Also, in that respect, you need to force Caleb to beat you from the pocket. You can't let him get outside and start making plays with his legs. That's when shit will get dangerous. If you watch the last Bears-Packers game, believe me, I think all Packers fans know that. On the Bears side of things, run the ball. Like I mentioned, like I just teased before, holy shit. Everything for the Bears is there if they just run the ball. This Packers run defense has been dog shit since Devontae Wyatt went down. They are so gettable. Of course, the Bears don't have Derrick Henry, but 36 carries, 219 yards, and 4 touchdowns on him. If you go back to the last time they played in Chicago, the Bears ran for nearly 5.5 a pop. Like, they can 100% run on this unit. The main concern I have is that Ben Johnson, like a lot of other great play callers, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, I'm concerned that they do a little too much. They like some of their pass calls a little bit, and they get greedy, and they go away from it. Follow the game script of the 2019 NFC Championship game where Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball 8 times. Run the ball. And everything's right in front of you. I have in my notes, if you want a specific number, over 40 rushing attempts and you win the game. Like, the Packers are not going to be able to consistently stop the Bears at all in the run. So, yeah, and that's with me even thinking that the Bears can get some passing success on the Packers. I just think that the run is such a mismatch in this game. And in the passing situations, the Packers corners, let's just say, are pretty pedestrian in man. They are a near bottom 10 unit in the league in man coverage. So yeah, get to that 3rd and medium spot like we talked about with Green Bay, needing to make sure they don't let Chicago in. If you're the Bears, you want to, again, get them to that 3rd and medium. And you know how you do that? Run the ball. I'm sorry, that's going to just be so annoying because that's going to be my point for some of these later games as well. For the Bears, the defense can bend. That is fine. Just do not break. If honestly, the script they had against the Packers last game was pretty good. They held them to only 19 points, and that's because, again, they held up in the red zone. They bent. They didn't break, and they forced a turnover, right? You got the Malik Willis fumble. You also had the Josh Jacobs fumble in that one. And if they get a performance similar to that, the Bears are going to come away with a win here. So for my game prediction, I have Chicago winning this one 25-22. I think the Bears get the ball back in the last 5 minutes, bleed the clock, run the ball, like I had said here 100 times, and hit a game-winning field goal and beat their rivals in a big, big spot. And then start to play with house money, which is a dangerous spot. You don't ever want to play a team who is kind of just playing for nothing or has nothing to prove, nothing to lose. That'll be really fun. Moving on to in my opinion, the game of the week. I've got the Bills and the Jaguars here, or Bills and the Jags. They're going to play Sunday morning on CBS. I will say up front, if either of these teams, like let's say the Jags were playing either Houston or they were playing 7 seed, the Chargers. Sorry, it took me a sec. Or in the inverse, if Buffalo was either playing New England or if they were playing Pittsburgh, I would have picked them to win. So had they not been playing each other, I would have had both these teams in the divisional round. That is how highly I think of these teams. The Jaguars, because they have 100% just earned it in the last 2 months. And on the Bills side, they have by far the best quarterback left on in the bracket. So on the Bills things, they are by far the less talented team in this matchup. 100%. that Jags team's built like a freaking juggernaut. But they have Josh Allen. They need a clean game out of Josh. This cannot go like the Texans game. This cannot go like hell the Buccaneers game where he had 2 interceptions, but of course he had 6 touchdowns, Josh Allen heroics. The Jaguars aren't going to let that shit fly. If Josh Allen has 2 turnovers in this game, it is going to be over quickly. And the Bills have been unstoppable all year when James Cook gets the ground game going. I want to say he was the rushing yards leader in this league, or leader this year. I'm not too sure if someone else caught up to him. I usually don't keep up with like counting stats like that. But yeah, I know he had an amazing year in that respect. Whenever they can run the ball with James Cook and they get a good yards per carry out of him, yeah, it's going to be, the Bills offense tends to feast. So, and a large part of that is because then you get Josh Allen playing a simpler game, and you don't have Josh Allen trying to go Superman mode, leading to turnovers. So the question is, can they get that run game going? And against like basically every other team, I would say, hell yeah, this is James Cook. It's this Bills offensive line, which is very good in run blocking. But the Jags have the best run defense in football this year. It is like not particularly close. I want to say they're averaging like something absurd, like 85 rushing yards per game, which is amazing. I don't know how the hell they've been doing that, because if you just look like on paper, it's not necessarily, there isn't a name that like jumps out to you. It's like, oh, that's why they're stopping the run. Like they don't have a Vita Vea, they don't have a Derek Brown. They just have a bunch of very, very solid guys on the defensive line who are really disciplined to run, very well coached, and they have linebackers that are filling in gaps. So huge credit goes to the Jaguars. I know the Jaguars OC is getting some head coaching talk. I think the DC should get a little bit of head coaching talk as well, but that's besides the point. The Jaguars also, like Chicago, take away the ball about as good as anybody else. I think they have 2 less turnovers than Chicago, which makes up the second best team in the NFL in terms of forcing takeaways. And if I'm being honest, that matchup is not particularly great for Buffalo. They're going to need Kincaid to step up huge. I saw an absurd stat today. Dalton Kincaid averages 2.8 yards per snap he's on the field, which you may think is like, oh, whatever. That doesn't sound like a whole lot. But if you think about it, that's kind of crazy. That's an absurd stat. I want to say he is 3rd in the league in that respect, only behind like Puka Nacua. And Puka Nacua gets like 20 targets a game. So Kincaid, they're just going to need him to do his thing because he has been really, really good for them this year. Also, in the second half of the year, we've started to see teams really, really lock in on Khalil Shakir because the Bills have had so much inconsistency at the receiver position outside of Shakir. So, for example, the Chiefs literally double-teamed Shakir in their game. They bracketed him. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jaguars do the same thing and just be like, okay, can literally anybody beat us besides Khalil Shakir? So that's part of the reason why they're going to need Kincaid to step up, because maybe Gabe Davis can pull off some playoff magic like he did, I want to say 5 years ago. Holy shit, I am becoming an old man. I can't believe that was 5 years ago, but that's besides the point. Keon Coleman, he's got cookies. The Cam Newton video. I'm forgetting the full quote, but yeah, that video is so dumb. Yeah, so I don't think Keon Coleman's he's been a healthy scratch for a lot of games. Yeah, so they're going to need somebody else to step up outside of Shakir, which is not as easy as it says, or not as easy as you may think. On the Jaguars side of things, Josh Hines Allen, you have to put Hines Allen, of course, because he's playing Josh Allen. You'll be a huge factor in this one. That's twofold. One, Spencer Brown is one of the more gettable tackles in the league when it comes to pass pro. Like, if you go back to the Houston game, he was getting torched on that right side by Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter. So, and that's part of the reason why the Bills had like their second worst offensive game of the year, because of how much pressure those guys were getting off the edge. And if they can keep Josh hemmed in the pocket and not really let him do Josh Allen things, this game could get really freaking ugly really quick. On the offense side of the ball, Trevor Lawrence and this offense have been on such a heater since the deadline. Acquiring Jacoby Myers really unlocked everything, and Parker Washington getting a bigger role and getting a bigger opportunity has paid off quite well, to say the least, for Jacksonville, and it has changed this entire team into like an offensive juggernaut. Also, from that podcast, I learned that part of the reason why that the Jaguars offense has done so well is because they leaned heavier into the ground game, and they've gone away from screens, which in Buffalo's case is not great, because the Bills, while they have the best pass defense in football, part of the reason why is because they have one of the worst run defenses in football. And it is going to be, if there is one matchup in this game that will determine the game, it is going to be, can the Bills get a freaking stop against that Jaguars run game? Because if you go back to the Patriots game, they got ran over the entire field. And of course, they came back to win that one, but they were down 21-0. And if we're being honest, you're not pulling that shit off against this Jaguars team. You're not coming back down 21-0. So, yeah, Etienne and that ground game is going to be huge, huge for Jacksonville. And speaking of that Bills pass defense, I mean, they are just a very, very good unit. A healthy Terrell Bernard, who is injured right now, by the way. I know he didn't practice on Wednesday, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. He is one of my favorite backers in the league. I love watching Terrell Bernard. But Bernard, Milano, and Christian Benford just makes this such a hard unit to really move on. And as well as, Joey Bosa playing great ball, Greg Rousseau, and yeah, even more others. Cole Bishop as well. Like, there are so many playmakers on the Bills side, or on the Bills defense, that can really, really mess up a pass game. As for my prediction for this game, this is by far the hardest call of the weekend. Like I said, I think this is the best game. I think this is a divisional round game that is hiding as a wild card. In my opinion, the winner of this game will go on to win the next one. I think we will see either one of these teams in the AFC Championship game. It's the same way I felt last year when the Bucs played the Commanders, and I was just like, both of these teams, whichever one wins it, is just going to go pull off another upset, just because they're both really good. And I was right. The Commanders ended up blowing out the Lions the next week. So, hardest call of the weekend. These are two of, in my opinion, the best teams in the AFC. And I'm just concerned. I don't think the Jaguars are going to attack the Bills' run defense as well as they should. I know Baishal Tutin's going to be out for this game, which would give him another layer of explosiveness in that run game. And I trust in in Josh Allen and the run game and James Cook to get going. I think the Jaguars are going to be so worried about trying to keep Josh Allen from single-handedly beating them that it will allow some run lanes to open up for James Cook. And give me the Bills. And in just an absurdly close game that will 100% come down to the last play. Or if we go back and look at it, it's going to be like, this play cost them the game, this play cost them. It'll just be one or two plays, really, that differentiate these two teams. If I'm being honest, it is like by far the hardest gut call. I am so 50-50 on this game. I think if I listen to one more person talk about it, I may flip my pick. It's just, I've been flip-flopping all day. I don't know who to pick here. And either way, I just hope we get a classic, because this really should be. I really see this kind of going one of two ways. I think that the Bills either win this one close or the Jaguars kick their ass. So maybe this is just my selfish pick, but I want a close game. I want a great game. So that's why I think the only team who wins a close game is Buffalo in this respect. Give me the Bills. Give me the Bills. 31-28 is what I have here. I don't know. We'll see. Moving on. We have, at least for this show, the flagship game, because I'm a Niners fan. And I know Niners-Eagles is, let's just say, not particularly chippy, or not particularly friendly. Very chippy is what I meant to say. I'm going to do my best to keep all my bias out of it. I'm going to post this as well as like its own individual segment. So Eagles fans, if you want to come at me in the comments because you don't like what I'm going to say or something like that, by all means, but let's keep it respectful. I want to have a good conversation about football. I posted this like Chargers video a while ago, and yeah, I did not become about football to a certain point. So I kind of just stopped responding to those comments. I want to just talk ball. That's what I'm here for. Heading to the Niners side of things. How much could change in a week? Really? Right around 7 days ago, I had this team as the best team in football. This was a unit. This was an offense that was averaging nearly 40 a game. Their defense, while had issues, seemed like they could always get a stop when needed. And now, I mean, I don't know. I feel like everybody's kind of done such a 180 on the Niners, and frankly, they kind of deserve it. The way they played on Saturday night, it was bad. Let's start with the obvious. This game will be dead in the water if Trent Williams or Ricky Pearsall do not play. As I was typing up my notes, I got a notification on my phone from my brother. He texted me. He's like, dude, Trent's practicing and Ricky's on a side field. I imagine Trent is going to be back, which is not what I would have guessed. Heading into today, I would have thought that we'd seen the inverse. I thought Ricky was going to come back and Trent was going to be either out or on some form of side field. But it looks like we're going to get Trent back, which is huge. And it looks like Ricky's hopefully going to be back. And we got some potential update about Fred Warner, but I'm not even going to talk about that because it's not going to affect this game. You need them back in some capacity. Even if Ricky's on a snap count, I'm not a big proponent for players playing injured. I just don't think they play very well. I think their backup is usually more than well suited to do that. But in Trent's case, Austin Pleasance did not have a great game. There was so much tension that had to be helped on his side, like with George Kittle chipping or McCaffrey blocking, that it fucked the offense. So we do need Trent back in this one. As for other injuries, Tatum, Bethune, and D. Winters are likely out. Tatum, we know, is on IR. He's done for the postseason. But D missed practice today as well. It looks like he's going to be out, and this may be disrespectful, but that is probably the biggest upgrade the Niners could have made, is getting those guys out of the lineup. Because if you want to look at, like, the Niners defense has been pretty solid, even through all the injuries. And then Michael Williams goes down in week 10, and then the dams start to open up a bit. Like, it starts to look bad, right? But then the offense kicks in, and then they get an easy stretch, and then the defense starts to look dog shit right around when Tatum Bethune came back from injury, and D. Winters was also there, but he also just wasn't playing great. He was playing the worst ball of this season the last few weeks. And frankly, having those guys out is going to be a huge upgrade, because now the Niners can bring in Eric Kendricks at the Mike linebacker spot, who played really great ball for them whenever he's had the opportunity. And Garrett Wallow is potentially supposed to fill in at the will, and he's not good either, but he's better than D. Winters, so I don't know. I really hope that it ends up being Kaiser White, who is a guy they picked up off the practice squad. Or not the practice squad. I think he was just available a few days ago, because he's probably better than Garrett Wallow. It's sad that we're talking postseason football and I have to bring up Garrett Wallow. That's just a side point. Unfortunately, Jair Brown will play. He's had a rib injury, but he seems to be recovered from that, which is not particularly great for the Niners, because he's been, alongside the linebackers, the biggest weaknesses of this defense. So if I'm Philadelphia, throw the ball at his direction every play, run the ball at his direction. He is not going to stand up to you in any way. And I saw, like, the people talking about potentially the corners as, like, a big mismatch, something to look at as far as the Eagles receivers on the Niners corners. I don't really see that so much. Renardo Green is, like, he's our second corner. He's not particularly great, but the one thing he is that he's, like, this big, he's a fairly big guy, and he can play really well in man-to-man coverage, and he's not very good with, like, lateral speed. And the Eagles receivers don't necessarily have that. This is not a team that's going to burn you. They're a team that's going to try and head top you, right? Fucking A.J. Brown right over his head. But I think Renardo Green and Lenore are pretty well suited in that respect. Lenore has just been awesome in coverage, and I think he's going to keep that up. I hope that he gets Devontae Smith and we get Renardo on A.J., just because I think that stylistically they play better. But if A.J. starts cooking Renardo, of course, you'd flip-flop it. But moving away from the defense, the best match individual, like, or unit on unit matchup probably of the whole weekend is this Niners offense on the Eagles defense. Start with, there's a big mismatch in that respect too, though, in that Eagles interior defensive line of Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis versus the Niners, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, and Spencer Burford. Even though Pooney's a pretty good player, Brendel in particular there's a lot of room for the Eagles to fuck up the game with just that. The Niners really need to run the ball to the outside to the right, run behind Colton, run behind Pooney. I would love for them to copy the Rams script in that respect, where we were talking about Derek Brown and A'Shawn Robinson, and how they threw a double at Derek Brown and they ran away from A'Shawn. I would throw a double at Jordan Davis, or I'd throw a double at Jalen Carter and run away from Jordan Davis. I think that's your best shot at getting runs off against this team, because if you try and go inside zone, I don't see it. If you try and go duo, maybe you can get duo blocks on both of those two, but I don't trust whoever has Brendel on their duo to hold up. So that's not going to be great either. And Brock is going to need to have a great game. Like he's been having the last 6 weeks, with the exception of Seattle. He didn't have a good game, but he didn't have a bad game either. So Purdy really does thrive against what are called static defenses. So those are defenses that don't motion post snap. They just, whatever look they will stay with it. And that's the reason why they had so much success against Chicago, because Chicago just ran a lot of, again, static cover 3. So you have 3 guys deep. And Purdy, I mean, he's going to eat that shit for breakfast. But Philly is not like Chicago. Vic Fangio is a freaking wizard. So everything looks like too high coverage, right? Where you have 2 safeties back. And then from there, it can be literally anything. It always motions right as the snap hits. It's going to completely shift on him. So it's going to be a big game for Purdy mentally. Can Purdy read the defense quickly? Especially when that Philly defense line can probably get there in 2 seconds or less. So it's going to have one hell of a task in front of him. But when it comes to reading coverages, I'm not sure if I take any quarterback over Purdy. So that's the good news for the Niners. It's going to be a great chess match between those two, between Purdy and Shanahan and Fangio. That is going to be awesome. That is probably the best matchup you'll get of the weekend. That is, I'm so excited for that. Kyle needs to not get cute. By that, what I mean is that fourth down deep shot call they had against Seattle was open. Yes, I get it. It technically worked. But you also have to understand who you are playing and, and the edge rushers and the defensive line they have. You don't want Brock turning his back on a 4th and 1 and letting all those Eagles rushers get to him like Seattle's did. So keep things simple. Let Brock just attack. Let Brock work. Try and get a run game going. That's going to be huge in this one if they can force those Philly defensive linemen to have to take a step back, not be able to tee off on every play. And in particular, some guys that I think the Niners can attack, their mismatches. They can attack Adoree Jackson, like, frankly, every team has this year outside of the Raiders, because they're the Raiders. They can attack Nakobe Dean, who is coming back off injury. Nakobe Dean's a thumper, but he's just shorter. Purdy can definitely layer the ball over his head. That's just kind of how it is. And then the safeties, the Eagles are missing Andrew Mukbaka, who got injured right around midseason. So it is Reed Blankenship and Marcus Epps. And those guys, well, I think Reed Blankenship's a good player. They are gettable. They're not infallible. I would much rather have them be tested over, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean or Zach Bond. So I think you just have to pick and choose your battles in that respect. On the Eagles side of things, they're getting healthy. They have 21 of their 22 starters back. They have significantly more talent than the Niners on paper by the roster. Like almost every position outside of quarterback, outside of right guard of all things actually, and maybe not even corner, like quarterback, right guard, running back. I think McCaffrey's been better than Saquon, but that's just because of McCaffrey's receiving ability, not necessarily rushing. Outside of that, the Eagles kind of just wash them at every spot. They have such a huge talent gap in this game. But I cannot express how much of a coaching gap there is in this game. And that might piss off Eagles fans a lot. I get that. That is fair. I would be a little pressed too. But I watched so much tape to get ready for this podcast, more than I have for any other, because I don't usually do preview shows. I want to be able to provide something here besides the, national media. This quarterback's under a lot of pressure. Josh Allen, this is such a big game for him. And have that be the extent of my analysis. I would love to give you guys something to actually watch for in the game. So I did a ton of homework for this podcast. When I tell you, like, a good chunk of my time was spent just trying to understand one half of Eagles offensive ball. It is so hard to understand. Some of these plays I would watch back for 5 minutes and they were 15-second plays. I would just keep rewinding trying to understand. I had to download a thing to like draw on the screen so I could try and figure out where people were supposed to be or what they were supposed to do or what the thinking was. This Eagles offense, oh my God, it is one of the worst coached units I have frankly ever seen. Considering the talent they have, like, yeah, the Raiders, the Commanders probably had worse coach units, Commanders defense, Raiders offense. But in terms of how much talent they have, where they should be, this is really something. Like, Patullo is horrible, but god damn, at some point, Sirianni needs some blame too. And I know Sirianni was, I know he was supposed to assist with play calling in the Buffalo game. That's the tape I watched. Oh my God, it was hell to get through. It was not fun. I love watching film. This is my sort of thing. It's my nerd shit that I love. And it was actively not fun trying to understand it. For some reason, Patullo loves hitch routes more than I have frankly seen any coordinator love hitch routes, to the point where it was working a bit against the Bills' zone coverage in the first half. But then you go to the second half and you watch, why did the Eagles have -3 yards in the second half? It's because they kept trying to run the same 10-yard curls against man, like tight man coverage. And the Eagles defenders, the Bills defenders were never, ever confused as to maybe it's a double move. Nope. Every time they were just chilling right there on the hitches. And it led Jalen Hurts just having to scramble the pocket and trying to find something. But there was never anything. Even Jalen Hurts also had a few missed balls in that game, but that wasn't the reason that that became a game when they should have dominated it, really. And it should have been done by the end of the third quarter. This guy is beyond me, man. Some other stuff outside of coaching. The interior offensive line for the Eagles is pretty bad. They're kind of riding off the reputation of last year, and that's because Landon Dickerson is playing through injury pretty clearly. He's not playing his best ball. Morgan's very much benefited last year from having those two amazing guards next to him in a healthy Dickerson and Becton. Juergens is bad. I'm going to be blunt here. I don't know if he's dealing with some ailment, but he is flat out bad. Like, he kills 5 to 10 plays per game, and on a lot of them, he's killing run plays, which is brutal for this Eagles team. His PR is insane. I don't know if he got that just because he was the backup to Jason Kelce, but Cam Jurgens is not a good football player right now. And their right guard, Tyler Steen, is also the same way. He is not good at all. So if you look at like some of the runs that the Eagles have, they just get blown up right away. A defense tackle sheds off 2 guys, or there's a miscommunication and it leaves some rusher like right there in the backfield ready to take him down. And a combination of bad execution on the interior offensive line and just god-awful coaching has really killed the Eagles offense. Like, the fact that was a Week 17 game is beyond me. That looked like preseason or Week 1 in terms of how many guys were just missing assignments, miscues, bad calls, etc. Oh my God. Moving away from that side of the ball, the defense in particular, or not, the defense is pretty good. It's better than I honestly thought it was. I was watching some of the tape. They're a really, really good unit. Phillips, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Jalix Hunt. Jalix Hunt in particular is better than I thought he was. He's been making more of an impact in the last, or whenever he's healthy in the last few weeks. That D-line is just so good. And we've seen this defense with and without Jalen Carter. Without Jalen Carter, they look like solid, but not particularly great. But then you add in Carter, and oh my God, they're really, really good. They're going to be getting him back for this game. And he is a game wrecker. He poses so many problems for the Niners with that interior offensive line. Vic Fangio, of course, we talked about him a little earlier. That matchup between him and Shanahan is something. Like, that is really fun. They've played against each other 4 times, but we've been kind of deprived of good games just because those were really bad Shanahan teams that he played against. This will be the first time that we get Fangio versus Shanahan, where they both have really good units. Shanahan has a good quarterback, and that'll make it really fun. Jalen Hurts, the last time he played Robert Saleh, was not particularly good. That was the Jets game from, I want to say 2 years ago, when that was the first loss they had of the year, and he had 3 interceptions, and that Eagles team ended up falling apart later in the season. But granted, that was so long ago. That was a whole different defense, so I don't know how much you can take away from it. The Niners have been better in terms of containing quarterbacks, and Jalen Hurts has set himself, like, part of the game plan is for him to run less, which is something. Again, Kevin Patullo, not the smartest guy in the office, but if Jalen Hurts can get going with his legs, that'll be really killer for this Niners team, because I feel like past 2 seconds, that coverage is going to let up, and more than anything, that pass rush is just not particularly good at all, and if he starts running, it's going to make it even harder. They'll 100% have chances to press this team deep with deep shots to Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. Hell, I think they could even get Goddard over the middle with some like 20 to 30-yard chunks. Even with the way the Niners run defense played against Seattle, I don't see that happening in this Philly game. Just because if you look, they shut down Jonathan Taylor. They held him to less than 50 yards. They did a relatively good job against the Bears' backs. I just think the Niners defense had a really, really bad game in terms of the run. They were just getting bad execution from their backers. The edges weren't holding their blocks on the outside. Jair Brown, as we talked about in last week's, or not last week, 2 days ago, did not have a great game at all in run support. I imagine that'll just get better, especially with the linebackers basically being replaced. So I don't see Saquon in that ground game finding rhythm, especially just because, again, oh my God, this Kevin Patullo is so bad. So my prediction for the game, I think the talent gap of the coaching staff makes up for a lot of the talent deficiencies in this one. I don't see Philly having a Seattle-like performance on defense. So because of that, I think the Niners end up taking this one in an upset. If you want to call that biased, it probably is to a certain degree. I think that's fair. I'm not going to necessarily push back on you in that respect. But frankly, Philly coaching, Kevin Patullo is just so bad. I frankly get a lot of shades of 2023's Eagles team, and that's a team that got destroyed by Tampa in the Wildcard. Niners 24, Philly 17 is my guess at it. Moving on, we have Sunday night, the Chargers at the Patriots. This is going to be a really, really fun one. The offensive line for the Chargers, is the first thing you have to talk about when it comes to them. They would be the worst. This is another fun stat I learned. Since Next Gen Stats has been tracking like offensive line metrics, they would become the worst offensive line to win a playoff game since the metrics started being tracked in 2002. So they would literally be, at least to our best guess, the worst offensive line in the modern era to win a playoff game. Only ones that competed with them was like the 2011 Giants offensive line, but that's not comparable. Like the Chargers offensive line is just so bad. In that respect, Herbert's playing really, really well considering the offensive line and the hand injury. His last start was against Houston, and even though they lost, he played a really, really good game in that one as well. I still love the Chargers defense with Jesse Minter. He will be a head coach next somewhere now that we know that there's, I want to say, 8 job openings available. Potentially we'll get more soon as well, especially if one of these teams gets blown out on the wild card. We might see an opening come up. But I think he'll be a head coach somewhere. Of course, their edge rushers are amazing. The best matchup of the game, in my opinion, is the Chargers edge rushers versus the Patriots tackles, because we know Will Campbell will be back, and hopefully Morgan Moses will play. Not too sure what the status is on him just yet, but Tuli Tuipulotu and Khalil Mack against Will Campbell and Morgan Moses is just awesome. That is like just genuinely a treat. Included Odafe Owe in that bunch as well. Those 3 against those 2. Amazing, amazing football. For the Chargers as well, Herbert has been really, really good on deep shots this year. I think that he doesn't get enough credit for that. And one of their best deep threat receivers is Quentin Johnson. So if they get a matchup where it's Quentin against not Gonzo, do not be surprised if Herbert has enough time. He will go deep and he'll try and attack it. Because as much as I don't know how much I love Quentin Johnson, the player, he's a pretty good deep threat, and he's been the Chargers' best deep threat this season. They're also going to need to look to get Lad Bukaki going, but he's playing a particularly good slot corner in Marcus Jones. And whoever is being guarded by Gonzo, you can just kind of ignore that side of the field, which is not a great spot to be in. I am very worried about Milton Williams against that Chargers offensive line. In my opinion, Milton Williams has been one of the best players in the league, or not in this, one of the best defensive tackles in the league for the last 2 years. Dating back to Philly, he was a big reason why the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. And this year, he has continued to provide that same impact. There's a reason why he got paid $30 million. And I don't know if you remember, fun tidbit, he was supposed to be in Carolina, but the Patriots came back last second and offered him a giant contract. So he took that. Imagine, oh my God, this Carolina team with Derek Brown, Ashawn Robinson, and Milton Williams. Oh my God, that's just disgusting. Anyways, on the Patriots side of things, Drake May, man. I went back and watched the Ravens tape in the second half just because that was the time he was under the most duress. And I imagine that Chargers defense is really good. He will be under duress at some points. But my God, in that game, if you just want proof, like I know people talk about, oh, he's this easy on quarterback. We need to see how he does in the playoffs. And again, that is absolutely fair. But if you want to just watch if you want to watch Drake May under duress, go back and watch the Ravens game in that second half. He's getting killed every play, and he still led a 10-point comeback, basically passing the ball every play. He was, oh my God, he was so good in that game. Disgusting. In my opinion, that was like the best half any quarterback has had this year, just because considering the spot he was in, competition, especially because Buffalo was breathing right down their neck too. And the Ravens were fighting for their playoff lives at that point. That was just amazing to watch. Loved. If you're a football fan like me, just go back and watch that second half that he had against the Ravens. Oh my God. It looks like the legal situations for the Patriots won't affect the postseason, so we haven't heard anything on Stephon Diggs or Christian Barmore. So I would presume they're going to play. Stephon Diggs is going to have a big game in this one. And let me check on Dante Jackson. That I know he got injured in the Broncos game, that meaningless game. But by all accounts, he's going to be ready for that game, or for this game. And he is going to be a huge, huge factor in this one because Dante Jackson is a hell of a corner. And Diggs versus Dante Jackson is also just going to be a really, really fun matchup. Yeah, so moving on to prediction. I have... again, I know Chargers fans aren't particularly happy with me right now, but I have the Patriots winning this one 28-20. I cannot see that offensive line winning a playoff game. I just can't. I think they're one and done in the postseason, and I think that they kind of just got screwed by injuries, like a lot of teams did this year. I want to see this team come back with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. I want to see them run it back because I think they'll be one of the best teams in the AFC. They're going to give Denver a good run for their money, or Kansas City if they're back to full strength. We'll see. Moving on to the last game of the Wildcard weekend. Makes me sad just thinking about it's the last game. We haven't even got a chance to watch it. That's going to be a sad feeling that day on that Monday night. The last Wildcard game, Texans at the Steelers, Monday night on ESPN. The Texans, their offense was trending upwards for the first time in God knows how long. They had a really, really good game against Indy. They put up 38 points. Part of that is because the defense gave them 7 points, but it's Houston. That's kind of just regular for them. CJ Stroud had a really, really good game, which is going to be huge. We know CJ Stroud, despite his regular season struggles, he the last 2 years. He has been awesome in the postseason, and I expect nothing different. As he's starting to get really, really good chemistry with Jaden Higgins as well. If you go back to that Colts game, Higgins was making a ton of impact plays, and that'll be huge for them in this. One of them is going to be guarded by Joey Porter, so the other guy has to make sure they really step up on this one as well. Yeah, the biggest reason the Texans could get fucked over in this game is that Steelers D-line versus the Texans offensive line is also a pretty brutal mismatch. That Texans offensive line is not particularly great, and that Steelers defensive line with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. I know TJ Watt hasn't been like the same player this year, but still TJ Watt in the postseason. I'd be a little nervous. Cam Hayward, they just have a bunch of killers on that defensive line. So that's going to be one thing the Texans have to look out for. Also, this is a potentially prime spot for Woody Marks to have a great game. Woody's looked so good this season. He's been really explosive. And even though, like, you watch the Texans film, the offensive line doesn't give him many chances to necessarily pop a big play, but it feels like every time there is some opening, he takes it, he attacks the hole, and he's like just such an explosive runner. So much fun to watch Woody Marks. I watched him at USC too, so that was great. I think Woody Marks is going to have openings in this game. The Steelers did a relatively good job on Derrick Henry in that second half, but in the first half, there was more than plenty of opportunities for Derrick Henry to really gash him. Moving on to the Steelers side of things, if you go back, this is going to be a lot of what I said during the Ravens game, so if you listen to that podcast, it's just going to be a lot of repetition. Rodgers playing his best ball in the last 2 years, in the last month and change. He's been really good. In that Ravens game, he was like on fire, especially in that second half when Kyle Hamilton came out of the game. That Steelers offense really got going. They have a really, really good rushing attack with Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Warren. I always really loved Jalen Warren. So explosive with the ball as well. And Kenneth Gainwell has been kind of emerged as like the number one target on that team. But DK Metcalf is back, so he'll go back to being the second target as a freaking running back. But yeah, Steelers are riding off a hell of a high heading into this one with how their game finished up, knocking their division rivals out of the postseason and winning the AFC North. I'm super excited for this one. I fully thought heading in that whoever the Texans got, unless it was Jacksonville, I was ready to pick them over anybody. But watching that Pittsburgh game against Baltimore had me kind of change my mind a bit. Be like, I don't know. Because Pittsburgh just looks really, really good. And they're playing probably the best ball they've played in the last few years as of recently. Not just Aaron Rodgers, like the Steelers as a whole. It feels like every time we get to this time in January, we're just talking about the Steelers. It's like, oh, whoever team plays them is going to beat them by 100. And then they usually get beat by 100. So, D'Amico Ryans against Arthur Smith is just, I know Arthur Smith is like, he gets a lot of head coaching love for some reason. I never understood that. Arthur Smith has this weird fascination with certain players and certain plays. But D'Amico Ryans, and I forget always the Texans DC's name, but he's also really great. He's going to get some head coaching looks as well. But those two against Arthur Smith, I'm really concerned about. I'm really concerned about the Steelers' tackles against Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter. I don't see a way for Aaron Rodgers to really feel comfortable in this game. I think he's going to be under duress every play. He's going to have to get rid of that ball in less than a second and a half every time. But if we know anybody who can do that, it is Aaron Rodgers. So, with all that being said, we're over an hour, so I'll get straight to the prediction here. I have the Texans winning this one close, very close. I have them winning it. I didn't write a score. I have them winning it. Let's just go with like 20-17. Kind of low scoring. I think that the Texans just force a turnover or two. I think Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter blow up a few drives. And the Texans eke out of here with a win. But I think the Steelers give them a good fight. Yeah, I think that's all. That's all. We got through all 6 games. If you take away anything from this week, this is like some of the best matchups we've had in the postseason in terms of like small things you can just focus on in the game. There are just so many of them. Like, even if you want to go like to the macro, you have Kyle Shanahan's offense versus Vic Fangio's defense. That is just fun. If you are introducing somebody to football, you're like trying to get them, why should I be excited about football? That's going to be something to turn on. That is going to be awesome. It can sometimes be something like as simple as the Bills trying to run the ball against the Jaguars the Jaguars run D. Two of the best units in the league going at it in that respect as well. Or if you want to just show somebody some pure hatred on the football field, turn on Packers Bears for them and just watch people. I imagine there's going to be some fights in the stands. There's going to be fights on the field. Oh my God. I'm so excited. I can feel like I could just talk for another hour here, but I'm not going to do that to you guys. I want to thank you all so much for listening. For the postseason, this is going to be the way it goes. Tuesday, and the way my class schedule works out, this is kind of just the best way for me to do it. Tuesday, you'll get all the reactions. Thursday, you'll get the preview. And we're going to do this all the way until we know who's playing in the Super Bowl, which is crazy. It's crazy to think that we're going to know who's in the Super Bowl in 3 weeks. But this has been an amazing NFL season. I'm so happy we could talk the postseason. I'll be back next Tuesday to get you guys a new podcast, react to the Wildcard, or hopefully my Niners are in it. And yeah, with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have a phenomenal day.